The Carmichael house always smelled like November. Even in July, when Sarah first toured the colonial-style home with its wraparound porch and original hardwood floors, she detected something beneath the realtor's vanilla air freshener. Cinnamon, nutmeg, that particular sweetness of candied yams left too long in the oven. Previous owners were real homebodies, the realtor said, her smile tight, especially around the holidays. Sarah signed the papers in August. By September, she'd stopped noticing the smell. The trouble began the week before Thanksgiving. She woke at 3:47 a.m. to sounds from downstairs. Not footsteps exactly, more like the scrape of chair legs against wood, the distant clink of silverware. Sarah lay frozen, listening to her heart hammer against her ribs. She lived alone. The doors were locked. The sounds stopped. In the morning, she found her dining room table set for 12 good china she didn't own, crystal goblets catching the pale sunlight, each place setting perfect, waiting. Sarah's hands trembled as she touched a plate. It was warm. She called the police. They were kind, but useless. No signs of forced entry, no fingerprints. Maybe you sleepwalked, the younger officer suggested, not meeting her eyes. Stress can do funny things. She packed the china into boxes and shoved them in the basement. That night, she dreamed of a woman in a stained apron basting something in the oven. The woman turned, and where her face should have been was only steam rising. The next morning, the table was set again. 13 places. This time, Sarah didn't call the police again. Instead, she researched. The house had been owned by the Hendersons for 43 years. Margaret Henderson had been found in the kitchen on Thanksgiving Day, 1987, natural causes. The report said her family had been expected for dinner. They never came. She waited, the elderly neighbor told Sarah over the fence. Every year after they stopped visiting, Margaret would cook a full Thanksgiving dinner, set the table, light the candles, sit there until midnight, waiting. The neighbor's eyes grew distant. Towards the end, she wouldn't let anyone in. We'd see the lights on, smell the cooking. She died alone at that table, surrounded by food nobody came to eat. That night, Sarah tried to sleep in a hotel. At 3:47 a.m., she woke to the smell of roasting meat. She was in her dining room, standing in her nightgown, her hands on the back of a chair. 14 place settings now. The crystal goblets were filled with something dark. She ran, but the front door wouldn't open, neither would the back. The windows refused to budge. Sarah pressed her face against the cold glass and saw her car in the driveway, impossibly far away. Behind her, the oven timer dinged. "Please," Sarah whispered to the empty room. "I don't understand." The air grew thick with that November smell, but underneath it now, something else. Something that had been cooking far too long. She heard it then, the scrape of a chair, the rustle of fabric. Breathing, that wasn't hers. In the reflection of the window, Sarah saw her Margaret Henderson, still in her apron, still waiting. But she wasn't alone anymore. At the table sat others, shapes that might have been people once, their faces blurred like overexposed photographs. All of them perfectly still, all of them watching. The chair at the head of the table pulled out by itself. 15 settings now. Sarah understood. Then Margaret wasn't angry. She was lonely. So unbearably lonely that even the boundary between life and whatever came after couldn't contain her need for family, for celebration, for someone, anyone, to share her feast. The door to the dining room swung open. The smell rolled out like a wave, suffocating and sweet. Sarah's legs moved without her permission, carrying her toward her place at the table. She tried to scream, but no sound came. Her hand reached for the chair. "Sit," said a voice like wind through an empty house. "We've been waiting for you." Sarah sat. The others remained motionless, their blurred faces turned toward her. Margaret stood at the head of the table, that steam still rising where her face should be. She lifted a carving knife, old and gleaming. "We're family now," Margaret said, "and family stays together." The oven timer dinged again and again and again. Sarah wanted to run, to fight, to wake up, but her body wouldn't obey. Her hand picked up a fork. The plate before her filled with something she wouldn't look at directly. "Eat," Margaret commanded, and the others around the table moved in unison, lifting their forks. "We have so much to be thankful for." 3 weeks later, a couple toured the Carmichael house. It was back on the market. The realtor smiled her tight smile. "Previous owner left rather suddenly," she explained, "but look at these original hardwoods." The couple nodded, not noticing the smell. Not yet. In the dining room, the table sat empty, but in the right light, at the right angle, you could almost see the place setting 16 of them now. All waiting for the next Thanksgiving, all waiting for the family to be complete.